Okay, I'm here with Nicola Lewis from Smooth Operator. So thanks for sparing me the time, Nicola.
Pleasure.
What I was going to do is just ask you some questions, get a sense of what Smooth Operator is about, a bit of your background, and just help people who are thinking about having a conversation about the franchise, just give them a bit more insight if that's okay.
Okay.
So first of all, just get a sense of how long have you been in the events business?
I've been in the events business well over 25 years now.
Right, okay. And what originally drew you to events? What got you into that?
Well, I was in the invitation business originally, and I so enjoyed dealing with my clients that people started to ask me, just as well as doing the invitations, would you ever consider looking after our event and planning it for us? But I always felt until I had a proper team worked out and I knew what I was doing, I wouldn't do it. And then at an exhibition, I met somebody who was did table decorations, who known of for years, and we decided she would also like to do it, but we
Hmm.
decided we'd do it together. And we've been in business for 20 years together. And she just retired. We're still extremely good friends.
Great.
And here I am
And
today.
here you are. Okay. And what would you say has been the most enjoyable part of being involved in Smooth Operator?
I think two things. I think, first of all, liaising with your clients. It's lovely. You can get lovely people who are very intelligent. They think they know what they want,
Hmm.
and just guiding them. We never, ever tell people what they can and cannot have, but I'm there to guide them. What would be, what would look good? What would be the correct way of doing things? Um, so I think that's the first thing. And second of all, I think also just as important is seeing a room with nothing in it transform
Mm.
into an event space of a client's wishes at the end.
I have to say, some of the photographs that you've got are amazing. It just really shows off just what Smooth Operator can do for people.
Thank you.
Incredible. And what's made you decide to franchise this now?
We thought about franchising about 10, 15 years ago,
Hmm.
but we were extremely busy and felt that um, we we wouldn't have had the right amount of time to put into
Hmm.
this. I don't want anyone to take a smooth operator franchise without having smooth operator support behind them. And now, also very busy, but have more time to, my children are grown up,
Hmm.
and I have the time to help as well as prepare events that I already have in place.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So, as part of this franchise, the franchisees will get time with you as their mentor. And,
Absolutely. I would be delighted to help them, from going with them to see an initial client initially, helping them with running orders. I probably would ask if they wanted me to come to their first event,
mhm,
only to give guidance. I'm not, like I am with my clients, I'm not there to tell people what to do.
mhm.
I'm there to help them. So the idea, I would have thought, if there'd been a franchise when we were starting, we would have bought one, because
Yeah,
it's lovely to have the guidance. And if one person's taking it, they don't feel they're on their own. They're part of a
absolutely.
team.
Yeah, no, it sounds really good. So if I just go on to the Smooth Operator service itself, what would you say the Smooth Operator does for its clients?
Well, I suppose, from everything everything that the client wants, whether it's a wedding, a party, a
Hmm.
corporate event, with Smooth Operator, they only have to come to me.
Hmm.
I then find the right suppliers, the right event space. I choose a number of each, and then the clients they give me a budget, and I make sure I work to that budget. I would never ask clients to spend more than they have, and I think that's
Yeah,
very important. So smooth operator's job is to get all the suppliers and then take the clients to meet them, because the clients have got to like them, and they also will guide them to what they think would work for the client and is within the client's budget.
Great. Thank you. What would you say that would be, I guess, there's one or two things, but what do you take off the client's plate to make life easier for them?
Well, I think just the clients usually, when they come to me, they know they want to have an event.
Yeah.
They know what it's for, a special birthday or whatever the event's for. They have no idea usually where. They don't know whether they want it to
Mm,
be sit down or they don't or whatever. So I can guide them, show them pictures. This is, a bowl food event, which is
hmm.
lovely. Um, this entertainment's nice. Basically, we do everything so that the client comes to their own event as a guest,
Yeah, I love
which is
that
the
phrase.
most important thing for me.
Yeah. And if somebody was looking at Smooth Operator and wondering, what would be different from, say, another event management business, what stands Smooth Operator apart?
Well, I think that Smooth Operator is very personable. We're very hands on.
Mm,
Um, I don't think, unless we're away on holiday or we can't make it for whatever reason, we go to all meetings. So the client
got it.
isn't left on
Yeah.
their own. And so they get to know the suppliers, but and I suppose Smooth Operator can be bad cop or good cop. If a client
Hmm.
doesn't always want to say to somebody, actually, I really didn't like the taste of that food, but they would say it to us, and therefore I would then
Yeah,
say
you would
it.
manage it.
A lot of event companies just want to know what the client wants, and there's not that personal touch, and a lot of them you can't do everything under one roof where you can, and
Mm,
it's a huge responsibility for me because everything is under my umbrella, my name. But then on the other end of the coin, I can make sure it's to the standard that myself and the client would like.
fantastic. And I know you've talked about the supplier network that you spent over 20 years developing. Um, just could you just give me a sense of just how important that supply network will be to the franchisees?
Well, I think it'd be very important because when you're first starting in business, um, there are a number of suppliers who think, oh, they're new to it. So we'll tell
Mm,
them this costs this. They won't know any difference. They might make a few comparisons, but they don't know. They don't know who's reliable. They don't know
hmm.
who's going to turn up on the day. Um, and I think when you are starting up in business, it's hard enough getting the clients
Mm,
and doing the job, knowing that you have got modern, up to date suppliers, but have got a good reputation already under your belt. I think you're halfway there with a client.
right, fantastic. So if we move on to the business model, and you were just talking about inquiries, and I sense that inquiries will come from having done a good job for somebody. I just be get a sense of where do the inquiries come from?
Yes, a lot of it. I mean, myself and my partner, when we first started, and throughout the last 20 years, have done very little advertising. We've maybe advertised twice in a local magazine because when we first started, you tell people, you tell your friends, you tell your family, and your friends and family, somebody is having something
Mm,
and they often want to support you. Somebody's husband's having, their company's having a Christmas do or a corporate event, and they say, well, why don't we give so and so a chance? And that's how it starts. And you do a good job,
yeah.
you will get the next, and it rolls on. You can advertise, you can do this if it depends basically how many clients you feel you can take
Hmm.
on. You'll always have me in the background, but you are responsible for your clients, so it's how many you feel comfortable with. Nobody wants to let anybody down, so better
Yeah.
not to take on too many initially till you really know what you're doing.
So it sounds like just getting out there, talking to people, making sure people know you exist and what you do
Yes.
is really important. And and not taking on too much work initially until you've got yourself and really understand what it's all
But
about.
that's the advantage, I suppose, of a smooth operator franchise, because normally when you would start an event company, you'd have to do a lot of research
Mm,
into venues, suppliers, all sorts of things, the latest trends, the latest
mm,
colours here and abroad. Well, I have all that at my fingertips, which I can pass on to them.
it's
So they're
fantastic.
already ready to get up and start making money.
Great, fantastic. And then just so people understand how things happen, an inquiry might come through. I understand usually then there's a face-to-face conversation, perhaps.
Yes, well, I always think it's better when the first inquiry comes through to discuss as little as you can on the phone. They
Mm,
will often say, "How much do you charge?" And you would always start by saying, "Well, I think the best thing to do
mm,
is, I won't charge you for this, is if we can get together
yeah.
to suit you and discuss what your needs are, and then I'll give you the costings, and we can talk budgets and everything, but it's always better
Mm,
face to face, because once they meet you, and if you get on well with you, they think, I'd like to work with them. And often you're working with somebody anything from 3 months up to 18 months, 2 years on a
mm,
project. So you've got to get on well with your clients. They've got to like you.
yeah. So very much a
Yes, it's
people
definitely a
business.
people's profession.
And what I really like also about this is from I guess from a cash flow, a business perspective, is you take a decent sized deposit once the booking is placed, even if the actual event is, like you say, could be up to 18 months away. So it's a very positive cash flow business, isn't it?
It is. You take a deposit once the client has said they go with you. Before you do any work, you take a decent deposit.
Hmm.
Um, and then 6 months later, you take some more money. Say, for example, you were charging, just for example, £3,000. You would charge £1,000 when you saw the client. If it was going to go on for 18 months, 2 years, at the end of the year, you charge another thousand, which is better for the clients because then they haven't got anything else.
Mm. Yeah,
They're not finding the money later on,
yeah.
and then they pay 2 weeks before the final amount. Um, they can pay all the suppliers direct, so nothing is hidden from them.
Hmm.
Um, but negotiations on getting the best prices is always better done by a smooth operator, because a
Yeah.
client often is giving a supplier one job, where smooth operator is giving
Mm.
them a number of jobs. So they're always going to give a better price. And after
Yeah.
having 20 years in the business, our prices are probably the best for the clients.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so the next question I've got is just to understand the actual day. So we've got all the planning beforehand. And when it actually comes to the actual day, what are the key things? What's most important to making sure the event goes ahead as planned?
Well, the running order. You usually have a running order for suppliers and a running order for the family. Um, just so you know, when people, with suppliers, you don't want everybody arriving at the same time. Often venues only have one lift, one supplier lift. So it's a waste of their time as well. You've got to make sure the hotel's ready for them. Um, Really, it's making sure the right order for things to be done. So one supplier
Hmm.
isn't stopping another supplier getting on with their job. Making sure the family are comfortable, they're getting on with what their preparations, or sometimes if it's corporate, they won't even be there till the evening. So it's just making sure that everything is in place at
Hmm.
the right times for the right people. And then we always get there about, I get there about 9 in the morning, and we're the last to leave.
Right, fantastic. And I'd heard the phrase a green room, which was a completely new thing to
Yes.
me. So I've learnt a lot about just how important certain things are to be in place.
They
And
are, because also the suppliers work really, really hard,
yeah,
especially lighting and production guys and florists, etc. So we like to have a room. Um, we make sure that they're fed. If they're staying during the
yeah,
evening, they're fed and they get a hot meal. And I think the more, the better relationship you have with them,
Hmm.
the more they want to give to you and your clients.
Yeah.
And it works both ways. So there's somewhere for them to sit and be comfortable, to have cold drinks, to have something to eat. A lot of bands, they get changed during the evening into
Hmm.
different items of clothing. So they've got to have somewhere private
Yeah.
to get ready.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to the last section, which is just the opportunity here to become a smooth operator franchisee. Who do you think, in your opinion, what sort of person would do well as a smooth operator franchisee?
I think as long as you like being around people
Mhm. Yeah.
and forming relationships, anyone can do it. I really mean it. There's lots of men in the industry, lots of women. What I like about it and why I went into it initially is because, as I said earlier, I had an invitation company and my partner had
Mm.
something else. And initially, this was like a second job for us. So we didn't work as hard as we would have done, in all
Yeah.
truthfulness. But and we still did well. We still
Right.
did well. And why I think it's a good job for anyone is you can do as little or as much as you want. You can do this as a second job. You can do this as your main job and make a lot of money. I mean, I've traveled the country doing this,
Yeah.
and you'd be surprised if you get in with a company, a local company to you, but they might say, we're going to do a team event somewhere else. Well, you can go do that team event for them.
Mm.
And
Yep.
the more they trust you, and that'll go from being personable with them. I think something I should point out is I think first impressions are important,
Yeah.
very important. And I think as long as you are clean and tidy, you fingernails are clean. I know it sounds stupid, but the reason for saying that is not because I'm snobbish in any way. It's because if you present yourself well, you give the people you're going to see confidence. If you look good, they know that the expectations they
Yeah.
have will be put in place by you because you understand what they want.
Yeah. The importance of things looking right.
Yes,
Great. Thank you. So, um, you mentioned there that effectively what you said is anybody could become a smooth operator as long as they've got the right approach, right attitude, understand what's important. What what do you think they should think about and consider in terms of what's going to be involved? What should they be thoughtful of? What they should be aware of?
well, a good thing is that there's not much investment apart from the franchise. They need a phone,
Yeah.
um, either do emails on their phone or have a laptop. They don't really need anything else because Smooth Operator will provide them with clothing to wear at the functions, pens. We'll provide them with uh, writing pads for their running orders, all that kind of thing. So there's not a huge investment, but
Yeah.
there is, I suppose, an investment of their time. And I think it's a business which is great for one person to do on their own, as I said earlier. But I also think it's a great business if two people want to do it
Mm.
together. Split the cost of the franchise. You've always got somebody else if you can't
Yeah.
go to be at a meeting or event, you've got somebody else. And sometimes it's very nice to work
Mm.
alongside. Some people might think, I'll do it with a daughter or a son, or
Mm.
there's so many different ways you can go into this business.
Fantastic. And you've already mentioned the rewarding feeling of seeing the event in front of your own eyes and how happy and satisfied the clients are. As Yeah,
Exactly.
fantastic. Okay, so what kind of support? I think you have talked about this, but what kind of support might a franchisee receive having joined in their first few months?
So they could call or email me. Um, they would always know that I would respond. if I couldn't respond immediately, it would be within a 24-hour period, probably before knowing me.
Yeah.
So they would have me in the background. The most important thing I think would be their suppliers. I would go to meetings with them, as I said. I would be their total support. I think the most
Excellent.
important thing, as I said earlier again, I would have loved this to have
Yeah.
some guidance and not feel you're on your own. I mean, I do think after 6 months or so, people will do things their way and they're
Yeah.
entitled to do things their way as long as the standard of smooth operator is kept up. I'm not saying you can't do things
Yeah.
differently. Younger people have different ideas. I'm open to anything like that. They'd be able to show me new ideas, I'm sure. But I
Fantastic.
think getting a list of well over 200 suppliers that I work with all the time is probably the biggest thing.
Fantastic. And my last question actually is anybody who's been listening, what would be the best piece of advice you could give anyone thinking about joining event management?
To not worry. It's a great franchise because you you're just talking to people as if you're talking to friends. You just relax, you get to know people. Um, and I think the beauty of a franchise is when you go. I remember going to my first meeting and the client telling me what they wanted, and I said, absolutely, yes, 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 no problem. Came out, was probably green because I was thinking, where am I going to get the caliber of suppliers they want?
Mm,
How do I know which event space would work really well for that? Oh my God, I'd have loved
yeah,
to have had that support. And I think having the support means that you can grow faster,
yeah, absolutely.
but not to worry about just just to be themselves, to be personable, to like speaking to people. And don't forget, most people who are planning an event, it's normally a very happy event. So they're excited and looking forward to it. You're not catching them at the end of a day when they've been working hard and they don't want to speak to you. They're the ones that want your help.
Yeah,
So they're much more approachable. Life is much easier for you. It's not cold
and
calling.
yeah, yeah. So they're in a happy time, a happy place, and also I think you've got time with these events to seek your advice. Yeah,
Definitely.
because they usually have quite a timeline, and as you've mentioned, you're even as much as possible will be there at the start on the day if you can.
Absolutely. And if,
So
if a client said, I need to see you tomorrow, and I couldn't go tomorrow, but I would try and do a Zoom so that I could come in on the meeting and just introduce myself. And if there was any questions that I know that they might be thinking, rather than go away and say, I'll come back to you with those answers, I could just help them, guide
yeah,
them. But I would always say to any clients that, we're working together, we're a team. I would never say, I say it to anybody who works for me, we're all the same team. I never ever say so and so works for me, so and
yeah.
so works with me.
I think this franchise, it is unusual in the fact that they're going to have so much access to you, specifically your more than 20 years experience, and as you've mentioned, over 200 suppliers that can help bring the whole thing
All over,
together.
and these suppliers work all over the country. They actually work all over the world, but they work all over the country.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Nicola, for your honest answers and your help. I'm, I think this will be super interesting for people who are thinking about this. And what I would say is, thank you very much. And to anybody who's watched this, you will have got this via an email link, and there will also be a link that comes with that will enable you to book a short chat with me, 10 to 15 minutes at your discretion when you're available, and just we can have a chat some more about it and just kind of get a sense whether this is the right kind of franchise for you. So, thanks for watching. I hope you found it useful.